Hi everyone, it's Sal Jade. Thank you so much for joining me in this very brief tutorial where I'm going to explore for you one of the number one things you need to be and do and have and be making sure that you are constantly incorporating in your tarot business or your intuitive business. And that is empathy. Now, some of you might be thinking right now, I'm going to turn this off. I already have empathy. But what I want you to really feel into in this particular tutorial is how you can make sure you are dancing that dance between empathy and boundaries in your tarot sessions or in your intuitive readings or any kind of healing session that you are doing, because a lot of readers really don't quite get this and they fall short and can find themselves in really tricky situations with readings. So if you are wanting to be a professional reader, you are a professional reader, this is going to really benefit you because I'm going to share with you some strategies where you can make sure that you have your boundaries intact, but you are also giving an appropriate amount of empathy within every tarot reading you give in order that you can not only feel like you're best serving your clients, but that you can grow your client list. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been blessed enough to have helped over 90,000 students around the world learn how to read tarot, get in touch with their angels and guides, and run tarot businesses. And if you'd love to get more of these free offers that I do on YouTube, please do hit subscribe. And as always, if you have questions, please pop them below, as I do love to come in and answer your questions for you. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey with this empathy journey and talk a little bit about how I became so passionate about empathy as a reader and as a clairvoyant healer. And it's a little bit unusual because for me, those of you who've done some of my courses will remember these stories, that I got started before I became a professional reader. I actually managed a shop in Bondi Junction in Sydney where it was like a crystal and a bookshop, and I had psychics every day in there that I was managing. And it was a really interesting learning curve for me to be in the middle of clients coming in and really wanting to get the best information they could from the psychic reader of the day, and being really good friends and becoming quite close and considering them as mentors as the psychic readers in the shops. So I kind of got a really great exposure about how a psychic feels when a client is maybe being a little bit over the top or highly emotional, or them being unreasonable. And I also got to live through the eyes of the clients who were feeling frustrated and feeling like maybe that the psychic was being a little bit harsh and maybe being a bit judgmental. And because I was the middleman, the buck stopped with me, and I had to deal with refunds, and I had to deal with making sure that both parties felt that they were being heard when I had to intercede in some kind of conflict resolution. I really learnt early on that when I decided to take that step to become a professional myself, that empathy was going to be something that I was going to make sure I was completely on top of. And I also have a former history of being a high school teacher. So I learnt through that, you know, with teenagers, you can't just judge their behaviour constantly. Sometimes you've got to try to see where they're coming from so that you can get to the best resolution for them, and obviously coming from a softer space rather than being in a lectury space, but also not wanting them to get away with everything and seeing how far they can push you. And this can actually be a little bit like the psychic journey, so as a healer and as a psychic and a tarot reader. So the first thing I want to start by saying is, it can be very frustrating being a tarot reader when you have a client come and that client is perhaps overly emotional and they're not taking on board anything you're saying. So they may be rejecting you outright, they may be refusing to look at the cards that are coming up, they may be even denying your knowledge and saying, well, I saw someone last week who saw something totally different, and how come you're seeing this? And almost challenging you and pushing you into that very hostile space where it's very hard not to defend yourself because of you being attacked. Your professional conduct and skills and abilities being attacked. So it can be very difficult to be able to go into a softer space and to hear what they're saying and to not feel defensive. So if this has happened to you before, please do not judge yourself, because this is a first, let's call it a first instant response that most humans will have, where someone is attacking them and you are doing the very best you can to help them. And you can see that maybe it's just that they don't want to hear it. They're just like, no. And I will be very honest with you, those of you who have done my love readings course on Udemy on how to give a more higher level love readings will know that in love readings, this is what happens more than most situations. So most people will become very defensive about their love choices and their, what's going on for them in their love life. And if you come in hard and fast, thinking you're being like, well, I'm the tough love reader, I'm going to give it to them and say, well, I'd never let anyone treat me like this. And, really this bullying narcissist who's cheated on you 3 times, get rid of him, girl, get rid of him, like, why are you even coming back to me? This is, you've been told. This is not the right response. Even though you might be tempted to do it, it's not the right response. It's going to further traumatize someone who is already in trauma. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say sugarcoat things for them. If the cards are showing up that this person needs to walk away from this situation, then please, this is my number one strategy, put the ball back in their court. Don't tell them you have to do this or you're never going to find love, or you have to do this or the world's going to end. Those kind of have tos and musts and should haves could possibly trigger a lot of anxiety in the person that's come to see you. Like, they're in this position for a reason, and most of the time they actually do know this isn't a good situation for them, and they're looking for you to wave a magic wand and to make it better for them, and they're in significant amounts of trauma and they're highly emotional, and it's not your job to get out and be this strict matron. It is your job to hold space for them and help them navigate it by putting the choices back in their hand. So what does that mean? So say, for example, they get a card like the Tower, or a card like the Death, or a card like the Three of Swords. All these cards, or a card like the Eight of Cups. All these cards indicate that for their highest good, they need to walk away from this very toxic situation. Having said that, they are coming back again and again, either to you or other readers, and they're just not feeling like they can let go. And they might say things to you like, oh, but it's my twin flame, or, one of the readers said we're definitely meant to end up together, and, he's got a lot of stress through work, and, I know he's got these problems with his ex, and they will come full of these excuses. And please know, I've been in this situation, and these excuses are very genuine and they feel real, and they're not necessarily meaning that this person isn't meant to be for them. Like, the cards might be just saying, no, walk away. Like, you need to walk away. And saying this in a way that doesn't make them feel hostile towards you, or doesn't make them feel like they're bursting into tears, or doesn't make them feel like you have no understanding of what they're going through, is not going to help them. And it's not going to help you. It's not going to help your business. They're not going to want to come back and see you. They're going to go and tell all their friends that they saw a really hostile reader. And sometimes people are high maintenance and they will, say those things, but you want to get yourself in the practice where you make sure it's nothing that you're doing to re-traumatize them. So what I feel like is the best strategy to take when people are doing this is to, as I said, say, listen, if this was me, I understand that you are in so much pain and confusion, and this person's behavior has been obviously very confusing for you. What I would think about is it might be better for you to walk away and, have some space from this, and maybe you'll get your confidence back and change your energy and they might come back in, or maybe in that space you'll actually meet someone who is better suited and you're not going to have all this confusion and chaos. But for now, it looks like a better opportunity. Your higher self seems to be indicating that having a break from this situation, so not constantly checking your phone, not constantly asking this question of 20 different psychics and expecting the different answer, or getting the same answer and then getting confused when the answers are different. Being able to step back and take back your power and really think, do I really want this chaos and confusion in my life, or am I just trying to win, or am I just have I convinced myself this is the only person that can give me love? And so trying to get into their skin and understand how they feel. And any of you who have ever experienced heartbreak knows how that feels. But sometimes in our role as a reader, we get a little bit like, well, I have to do the best thing for them and give them this very strict, austere information that the cards are saying. And I'm not saying don't share that information. I'm just saying share it diplomatically. Share it in a way that makes them feel like they are in control of their choices. And so what I mean by that is saying, okay, I feel like the ball is in your court. You have the choice right now whether to walk away from this situation, or you have the choice to stay here. But I want you to keep remembering that if you choose to walk away with all these Tower cards and Death cards and Three of Sword cards and, all these cards that are indicating this is not a very fun experience for you, and you're telling me, and I can see the grief in your eyes and your auric field, that this is not a fun experience for you. If you're telling me you want to stay here because you believe this is the only person for you, then let's look at that. Like, again, this is going to be, maybe if you're someone like me, I either then will offer a future healing. I'll say, look, maybe come back and do a healing with me, or if we could do it now, or give the number of another healer, someone, so they don't feel like you're just pushing the more money and more sessions on them, and just say, this is, for me, detaching from this is going to be a healing revelation for you. And you're going to get what you need in your love life much quicker if you're willing to do this. So see how I put it back in their court to make that decision. I didn't push it in there, and I didn't lecture them that they've had 3 or 4 different psychic readings or 20 different psychic readings. As I said, walking in the shops, I would see clients come in, and see different readers, like, once or twice a week, and ask the same questions. And so I know this is a real phenomena that we experience as intuitive and tarot readers and even healers. And so do find a way to feel like, how would I feel if somebody did this to me? How would I feel if I was severely traumatized? Would I want them doing their parental, you are not good enough and you are not smart enough and you are not, having enough strong boundaries enough in a harsh way? Or would I want them to do it in a gentle way that still gets the same result? And as I said, I know from my many years of being an instructor and being a teacher, sometimes going in the soft way gets a much better result. And you will get the loyalty of that client. They will feel grateful. And I know this from the thousands of readings I've done for people that have been in high amounts of trauma, that they have always come back, or they've given reviews, or they've told their friends that I had empathy and I had sympathy and I had compassion for their predicament. And this is a key. Okay, it's so important. And something I noticed that was quite interesting, being a manager of psychics and tarot readers and palm readers and mediums, is that the ones that were super accurate, like that eerie kind of, we can call it the parlor trick accurate, where they can sit down in front of them and they're like, this is your grandmother's name and you've got 3 children and you've got this blue fence and you grew up in a house with a roof that used to leak all the time and your dad was a mechanic, like that kind of stuff. And they're channeling all this information really quickly to you and you're thinking, my God, this person is the greatest. Those kind of psychics that have that kind of incredible psychic channeling that just comes through as soon as you sit down in front of them, if they don't have empathy, yes, they'll get the people that come in and they want that, that 100% accuracy stuff. And by the way, for me, I've never met 100% accuracy, but they get people that, nail that stuff, but that evidential stuff. But if they don't have that compassion and hold that space, that person leaves kind of feeling like, oh, okay, well, that was great, and I was really impressed by their psychic gifts, and all this stuff's going to happen to me, and some of it's quite bad, and, it can lead them feeling very confused and conflicted. Now, I'm not saying don't demonstrate your accuracy skills. Please do that. This builds confidence in your clients. But I always found it interesting that those that I always considered a bit less spot on with the accuracy, but huge hearts and empathy and compassion, and again, helping people transform and navigate, intuitively healing them, those people had immense popularity as well. They were just as popular as the ones that could do all this, 100% accuracy, your favorite color's blue kind of stuff. So just keep that in mind. Obviously you want accuracy, but you also need to develop empathy as a reader. So something that you can do in your practice, if you can feel like your client's irritating you a bit, or they're challenging you a bit, don't judge yourself. It's human if anyone's, going to judge us. We're going to feel some kind of egoic response. We're not enlightened. To just take a step back and think, okay, when have I felt like this? When have I felt like I wasn't being heard or understood, or someone had abandoned me and rejected me? When have I felt like this? And how would I have wanted someone to speak to me, even if it was bad news? And take that on board and put the choice back in their court. And I know myself, and I'm going to share one little story with you from last year. And again, I have seen many, many healers in my life. I've been a healer for over 15 years. And I had a really interesting experience last year where I went and saw a healer. It was an incredibly traumatic year for me last year, and I went and saw this healer, and I'd seen some pretty good reviews about her, and I was excited. And I went in there and I started telling everything that was going on in my year. And she just sat there and listened. I thought, oh, good, she's listening. She's patiently listening. She didn't interject. She just listened. And I got to the end of this story, and I knew I only had, 1 hour with her, so I didn't tell her the full everything, but I told her as much as I could about this painful situation I was in. And she didn't know I was a clairvoyant healer, so in her defense, she didn't know my background. And I got to the bit where I sort of finished all up that had happened to me and what I wanted her to help me with. And she went, so what I'm hearing here is that it feels like you you feel like this person has done this to you, but I'm not really hearing where you're taking responsibility for this. And I can remember it was kind of like she just punched me in the stomach. Like, that might have been a fair point. And look, and I did put a few things of like, I know his background, and I know, the parental background story. Like, I did put a bit of that in there, but I was obviously mostly focused on my journey and my childhood and what I knew was influencing what was going on. And to have her just sort of not even say, that's a lot to go through in a year. And to have her not even to say, that must be really difficult for you, but for the first thing out of her mouth was a judgment on me feeling like I'm not enough, it really triggered me. And, good for me to go away and work on it. Now, what was interesting about this healer is she was an incredible healer. Like, the shifts that I did with her were profoundly phenomenal, I was about to say. They were really, really amazing. But I just couldn't bring myself to feel like I wanted to go back and see her. And then about a month passed, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give her another chance. Maybe she's had a bad day. Maybe I was dumping and venting a lot on her, and maybe she'd had 5 clients in a row do it, and she was on a different strategy. Like, okay. So I went back, and she did the same thing. It was like, I was deliberately like, I know that this is my life karma, and this is my journey, and this is, what I'm learning, and I've got so much out of our last session, and I can still feel that this is happening, and I want to respond better to it. So I was taking the responsibility, and in her face and in her, there was just nothing. There was no, there's just no expression of, that's a lot to go through. There was there was none of it. And I felt like, has this woman got any empathy? And I do know, because I've been trained very well by some incredible mentors, that you can't just go, oh, poor you, and pat them for an hour. And, you've got to empower them a bit, and you've got to keep yourself energetically detached and not take it all on. But you can also be a human being. So I guess that's the roundabout way of saying, be a human being. Treat people how you'd like to be treated. Yes, you can have an objective therapist thing when you're doing readings, because people are coming to you extremely vulnerable, and it is like a therapy session in many levels. But also just express the humanity. That for me is crucial. So look at how you are developing empathy in your sessions. If you feel like you're getting it wrong sometimes, or you've gotten it wrong before, that's okay. Plenty of time to correct yourself. We all make mistakes. We all do things wrong. I did a lot of things wrong in the beginning, and, still sometimes manage to trip up. But please do just remember that you can have compassion and sympathy. You don't have to sugarcoat everything and pat people like little children so that they don't transform and they don't have a little bit of tough love, but you can do it in a way that is very human and how you would like someone to do it for you. I hope that has helped everyone who has been thinking about, how do I deal with clients that are overly emotional, and how do I deal with this empathy? How do I incorporate it in my practice? The importance of it, why it sometimes can be even more important than accuracy with building loyalty in your clients and building a good name and making your clients feel seen and heard, and helping them to transform. Now, the next lecture, I'm so used to doing courses. The next lecture, the next video I have that's coming after this is on boundaries. So if you haven't watched this one before, this is the other spectrum where maybe you've got too much empathy. Maybe you've got an empathy rescuer thing going on. And so I'd love you to watch that, because it gives you 4 or 5 different strategies in boundaries if people are actually taking too much of your energy, or if they are asking for lots of different, lots more readings after the time is paid up, or you're in your private time with your family and they're contacting you once the reading's finished and they want more information. Like, just different ways of boundaries. And so that might be really helpful for you too, if you go in the other direction and you don't feel like you have enough boundaries and you need to work on that too. So thank you so much for joining me. Please do subscribe if you would like to know more about my offerings, and comment below or ask any questions if you have anything you need more help with. Thank you so much.